I always thought I knew who I was. Not because I'd found myself, but because I'd been told who I was every single day of my life. I was Princess Alina of Varence, only daughter of King Thorn and Queen Alira, heir to a throne I never asked for, trapped inside castle walls I never chose. My life was scripted down to the hour. Tutors, etiquette coaches, state dinners, staged smiles, and silence in the face of everything I wanted to say. Every second of my day was about appearances, politeness over honesty, grace over passion. A flawless mask sewn tight with royal obligation. But deep down, I wanted more. I wanted real. I wanted messy. I wanted to be just a girl, not a title, not a symbol. Just a girl who could laugh too loudly, make mistakes, wear ripped jeans, and not have to sit with her back straight every second. I wanted to feel life, not just be watched living it. That chance came in the most unexpected way. It was supposed to be a temporary break, a hush-hush agreement between me and my mother. She'd always understood a little better than my father. She saw the quiet ache behind my smiles, the hollow way I said thank you to courtiers, the longing in my eyes when I looked out past the gates. So when I told her I wanted to spend a year studying abroad, anonymously, she didn't say no. She just whispered, 1 year, but you can't tell anyone who you are. And just like that, I became Lena Varen, a transfer student from somewhere in Europe. I traded ball gowns for thrift store hoodies, royal tutors for crowded classrooms, and the palace for a public high school in upstate New York. It was the strangest, most terrifying freedom I'd ever tasted. The first day was chaos. Everyone moved so fast. The noise, the conversations, the careless bumping of shoulders in hallways. No one bowed. No one stood when I entered a room. It was thrilling and disorienting. For the first time in my life, I was invisible. No press watching, no advisors hovering, no eyes judging how I held my fork or crossed my legs. I could breathe. But the fantasy had cracks. I wasn't prepared for cafeteria politics or group projects where no one pulled their weight. I didn't know how to blend in. Every choice felt like a test I hadn't studied for. My accent slipped sometimes. My knowledge of pop culture was embarrassingly bad. And then, of course, there were the girls who sensed I didn't belong and made sure I never forgot it. They were beautiful in a way that was loud and sharp. Glossed lips, cutting laughs, perfectly filtered lives. To them, I was weird, too quiet, too polite, too fake. They didn't know how right they were. But I kept my head down. I wasn't there to make friends. I just wanted to live a slice of normal life. Eat in a crowded lunchroom. Sit under fluorescent lights. Get a C on a paper and not feel like the world was ending. And maybe, just maybe, feel something real for once. Then I met Jace. He wasn't like the others. He didn't care about cliques or social ladders. He had paint on his hands and fire in his eyes, always sketching in the margins of his notebooks, always late to class, but somehow still ahead of everyone. He noticed things, like how I never looked anyone in the eye too long, or how I flinched whenever someone mentioned their family. He didn't push. He just asked, quietly, "You ever feel like you're playing someone else's role?" I didn't know what to say. No one had ever asked me that before. No one had even seen me before. We started spending time together. At first, it was little things. He'd walk with me to class, sit next to me in the back row, share his lunch when I forgot mine. Then it turned into study sessions at the library, late night walks, endless conversations about everything and nothing. He never treated me like I was delicate, never looked at me like I was strange. With him, I could laugh, be weird, say what I really thought. I didn't have to be perfect. I just had to be me. But the closer we got, the harder it became to lie. He didn't know who I really was, that I'd never had a part-time job, that I didn't live in a tiny apartment but a marble palace, that I wasn't just escaping stress, I was escaping a kingdom. And then there was the weight of what waited for me back home. I was supposed to return at the end of the year, take my place beside my parents, begin preparing for the throne, begin living the life that had been mapped out for me before I could even walk. And suddenly, every moment with Jace felt like it was ticking on borrowed time. Still, I let myself fall. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the princess. I was just a girl sitting under a blanket in his pickup truck, watching the stars, listening to him talk about dreams and freedom and wanting more than what the world hands you. And I thought, maybe this was it. Maybe this was what real life felt like. But secrets have a way of slipping out, even when you do everything to hold them in. The cracks started small, a slip of my language, a curious glance at my wallet where he saw the edge of a royal insignia, questions I couldn't answer fast enough. He was smart. He noticed everything. And one day he asked, "Who are you really?" I froze. The air between us suddenly heavy. I looked at him, at the boy who made me feel human, and I realized I had two choices: lie again, or risk everything. I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to tear off the mask and let him see the whole picture. No edits, no shadows. But I was terrified, not just of losing him, but of who I'd be without the lie. Would he still see me the same way? Would I even recognize myself anymore? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. He didn't push. He just looked at me, patient, quiet, like he already knew but wanted me to say it. And in that moment, I realized something. Maybe honesty doesn't start with grand confessions. Maybe it starts with a single sentence. "I haven't been honest with you." His brow furrowed, but he nodded, letting me take my time. "My name isn't Lina Varen," I said, each word like a drop of weight sliding off my chest. I'm Alina. Princess Alina Varence." Silence. You'd think a moment like that would feel dramatic, earth-shattering, like something in a movie. But it didn't. It was quiet, still. All I could hear was the wind outside and the pounding of my heart. He didn't say anything right away, just stared at me like he was trying to connect the dots between the girl he knew and the title he didn't. "You're serious?" he finally said. I nodded. He leaned back, slowly, processing. "So, you're actually a princess? Like castles and crowns and national holidays?" "Yes." He let out a soft breath and looked away for a second. Then he turned back. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because no one ever sees me. They see the title, the stories, the expectations. I didn't want to be a symbol to you. I wanted to be real, and I couldn't do that if you knew." Another silence, but this one felt different. Heavy, yes, but not cold. He rubbed the back of his neck. "So this whole time, you've just been pretending?" "No." Everything I said, everything I felt, it was all real. The only thing I hid was where I came from, not who I am. He looked at me then, and I could tell he was trying to see the truth in my eyes. Not the crown, not the palace, just the girl beneath it all. "I need time," he said. I nodded, understanding. "I know." And just like that, He walked away. That night, I didn't sleep. My thoughts spun in 1,000 directions. Had I just ruined everything? Was this the end of the one piece of real I'd ever had? Part of me wanted to run, to vanish into the life that waited for me back home. But the other part, the braver part, knew I had to face what came next, no matter how messy it got. The next few days were brutal. He didn't text, didn't sit next to me in class. It was like I'd gone back to being invisible again. But this time, it hurt. It wasn't freedom anymore, it was loss. I tried to focus on school, on blending in, on keeping my head down, but my chest felt hollow. Every little reminder of him, his sketches in the margins of the desks, the smell of paint lingering in the art room, felt like a quiet goodbye. Then, one afternoon, he showed up at my locker. He didn't say anything at first, just handed me something, a folded piece of paper. Inside was a sketch. Me, sitting on the library steps, hair in my face, laughing, just as I was, not as a princess, not as a royal, just me. Underneath, he'd written, "You're not just your title, and I should have seen that sooner." I looked up at him, eyes stinging. "I was angry," he said. "Not because you lied, but because I thought I'd lost the one person who actually understood me. And then I realized, maybe you're the only person who really does." I didn't know what to say, so I stepped forward and hugged him, tightly, like maybe if I held him long enough, time would slow down and this moment would last forever. But nothing lasts forever, especially not lies. And our little world, our bubble of normalcy, was about to burst. Someone had found out. It started as whispers, then stares, then a photo. Me walking into the building. My face side by side with a tabloid picture of me in a ball gown. The news spread fast. Princess Alina of Varence, hiding in plain sight. By the end of the day, the school was buzzing. Everyone wanted a piece of me. Students who'd never spoken to me before suddenly wanted selfies. Teachers looked at me like I'd deceived them personally. The girls who used to whisper behind my back now whispered behind fake smiles, asking if the rumors were true. And Jace? He looked at me differently. Not with anger, but with sadness. Because we both knew what this meant. The fairy tale was over. The school board called an emergency meeting. Security was increased. My mother called, voice trembling with worry. "We have to bring you home, Alina. It's not safe anymore." I looked around at the school I'd grown to love. The people who'd both challenged and changed me. And then I looked at Jace. "Just a few more days," I begged her, "please." She hesitated, then agreed. And in those final days, I made them count. I didn't hide anymore. I answered the questions. I owned my truth. And most importantly, I spent every second I could with Jace. Because no matter how it ended, I wanted him to know that what we had was never pretend. But time is merciless. And the day I had to leave came faster than I was ready for. The car was waiting outside the school gates, black, armored, my country's crest etched into the door like a signature I could never erase. 2 guards stood beside it, eyes scanning the crowd that had started to gather. Some students waved, others just stared, phones out, capturing the end of something they barely understood. I stood at the edge of the building, heart pounding like it was begging me not to go. Jace was next to me, hands in his pockets, quiet. We'd already said everything we needed to. But silence between us wasn't empty. It was full of memories, of words unsaid, of promises neither of us knew how to keep. "I hate that this is goodbye," I said. He looked at me, eyes steady. "Then let's not call it that." I smiled through the ache. What else could it be? A beginning, even if it doesn't feel like one yet. I wanted to believe that. I wanted to bottle that moment and carry it with me forever. The way he looked at me not as a princess, but as a person. The way he made the impossible feel just a little bit real. I reached into my bag and handed him something. A small envelope, sealed with my family's crest. Inside it was a letter and a key. To what? He asked. To the next chapter, I said. He didn't press. He just tucked it into his jacket like it meant everything. I stepped into the car, closed the door. The world outside suddenly looked small again. The school, the streets, the people who had unknowingly changed my life. It felt like a movie was ending, but I was still stuck in the final frame. As the car pulled away, I looked back. Jace was still standing there, watching me disappear. And in that second, I realized something. Sometimes, the most beautiful stories don't end with everything tied up neatly. Sometimes, they end with open doors, unanswered questions, and hearts that choose love even when the world demands otherwise. I went back to Varence, back to royal dinners, diplomatic meetings, long speeches I had to memorize, and traditions I had to follow. But I wasn't the same girl who had left. I wasn't just the princess anymore. I was a person, a real one, with memories that were mine and mine alone. They tried to polish me again, rehearse me, but something in me had changed. I asked more questions. I challenged old rules. I spoke from the heart, and I started writing letters. Long ones, filled with things I could never say out loud. Some I sent, some I kept. All of them were for Jace. Months passed. Seasons changed. My duties grew heavier, but I held on to the girl I'd become because she had found something rare, a truth so real it refused to fade. One morning, I got a letter. No royal seal, just my name, handwritten in messy, familiar letters. It was from Jace. Inside was a photo, the same drawing he'd given me, now framed and hung in a tiny art gallery. Below it, a plaque, Lena, the girl who made me believe in more. No fancy words, no promises, just that. But it was enough. That's the thing about love. It doesn't always end in forever. Sometimes it ends in change, in growth, in carrying pieces of someone with you, even when they're far away. Sometimes, the most powerful stories aren't the ones that end in castles and crowns, but in quiet moments that remind you who you really are. And maybe one day, our paths will cross again. Maybe I'll walk into a gallery in New York, or he'll wander into a palace in Varence, and we'll look at each other, not as strangers, not as a princess and a boy, but as two souls who met once under impossible circumstances and made each other whole. Until then, I'll keep writing, because our story isn't over. It's just waiting for its next chapter.
That was satisfying, wasn't it? If this story touched you even a little, be sure to give a like and subscribe for more just like it.